everybody. So, today we're going to talk about Indian tech support scammers. And we're going to focus on basically the Indian scammers. So, we're talking tech support, refund. There's some others, but the other types of scamming really should be in their own podcast. For example, Trilogy Media just the other day put out a video about a lady that they tried to help along with socialcatfish.com. And they were trying to help her see that she's been scammed for nearly 8 years, and she just didn't believe it. But it goes into detail about this refund, not a refund scammer, but a romance scammer that just had her on the string and was draining her of money. But that's a whole thing by itself. So what we're actually going to talk about are they are the phone scammers from India, and so typically you'll come across them in one of three ways. Actually, four, but the first three are the most common. So first one, you're these could be from pop-ups online, just random pop-ups that that just say you've got a virus, there's an error, just some sort of bullcrap thing that just opens up in your browser, but they designed it in a way that it kind of sort of looks like something from Windows. And if you're uneducated, you're not technically inclined, then you're not going to catch that that's not really an error message. So error messages, pop-ups as they call them. And no, I mean specifically that's what the scammers that run those types of scams call them, as the pop-up scams. And the fact that they can call certain companies that do that sell voice over IP, um, you know, internet phone service, and just say, "Hey, I'm running this type of service. How do what do I need?" And the fact that because these are run by crooks too, that just flat out, all right, just do it this way. If you just don't do this type of thing, it's not allowed. But anyway, they tell them how to scam people basically. But anyway, so the three types of scammers, the most common three ways that you'll hear from a scammer: number one, pop-up ads; number two, uh, could be an email; number three could be a random phone call. Hey, your car's extended warranty's run out. Yeah, and then the fourth one is sometimes they'll get you with texts. Um, I don't see that as much as the others because the others, I guess, don't cost them as much. But then again, I don't know what the. I think they probably realize the others have a way better conversion rate. Um, because text messages are hard to make look different than other text messages, and if they're going to scam people successfully, they should be using one of the five-digit premium numbers, and they just don't. They use a regular phone number, and so a legitimate service wouldn't actually do that unless there's a budget constraint somewhere. But yeah, we'll talk about those four more in depth. But I just want to go over that, and uh, and then we'll talk about ways to safeguard yourself. All right, so let's start with pop-up scams. So if you get a pop-up and it's a scam pop-up, what'll happen is, well, you'll see a message. It'll just show up at random. Maybe you clicked on something, but a lot of pop-ups can be triggered automatically without you clicking on anything other than going to a page, and you think you're getting one thing, but you're actually getting this pop-up. But they'll masquerade as could be a message from your browser. At least they'll pretend to be that. It doesn't mean that's the format your browser might use even remotely, but scammers don't care. And it really doesn't matter because if you don't know, you don't know. So, again, browser messages, some of them look like errors from the Windows operating system itself. So they might what have what appears to be a box that says, "Oh, we ran a virus scan and we detected this." Or it might be a blue screen, some sort of driver error, just some sort of convincing computer problem in a box that looks real. to somebody that doesn't know better. And so, for example, somebody like me that's been working with tech for a long time, that knows it inside and out, is gonna know that that's not really coming from Windows. And some of these pop-ups, I have to say, uh, uh, some of them are committed to the craft, and so they look good. I don't think they look real, but they look like, I don't know, like if they weren't scamming people, they maybe should be hired by somebody to write error messages and stuff. But I don't know, So, but either way, so those are, how they click. So when you click on these, it'll come up with usually an 800 number, and that will, um, that's how they get you. They know that if you see an 800 number, um, that it's gonna make it look more legit, because most people don't realize how easy it is to get an 800 number. If you want to get a toll-free number for yourself, um, there's the easiest way I could say is go to a site called call8.com, KALL, the number 8.com, and you can get an 800 number that forwards to a regular number. So that's usually how 800 numbers work. They're just forwarder numbers. I have never seen anybody set up an 800 number directly. um, I mean, well, you can, but most of the time it's literally an 800 number. So that particular call center, that line, that number does have a local number attached to it, but you may never actually know it unless they call you, unless somebody from that call center calls you from that number. Um, and even that could be set up to come from the toll-free number, but yeah. But either way, but they take advantage of the unknowing. Most people don't understand computer error messages. Most people don't understand how phone numbers and toll-free numbers work. I mean, just to be very clear, if they were looking to be as cheap as possible, they'd have a regular number, because the toll-free number cost them per minute. And that is the most beautiful reason to scam bait and waste their time. Because no matter what you're doing, whether you are just there to waste their time, whether you're just there to delete files or do other things to get back at the scammers, that whole time, no matter what you do, it costs them something to put up with you. And the longer and so the longer time that you waste their time on the phone, that's time that they can't spend with a victim. And so that's why scam baiters don't even have to have that crazy good technical skill. It's really a social skill, but you definitely pick up some technical skills along the way, like setting up um, like VMs to do different things. So you got one that pretends to be a web server that fakes a couple websites that you might need to have faked. Then you might have um, a proxy server running on that same server or a different server. You could have, and then of course you've got your VM that the scammer actually logs into, that you got to dress up real good to look like a real computer. And there's ways to do that. I found two videos not too long ago, that like by two people, one of which was Jim Browning, that basically told how to dress up a Windows computer, Windows VM, to look like a real computer to the scammer. Because yeah, if you're using VM software, the hypervisor has its own virtual hardware that Windows detects. And like, if a scammer knows what he's doing, he can look in Device Manager uh, and see exactly at least what Windows detects. So that's the beautiful thing. You can fix that, but you have to know that you got to do that. And so yeah, Jim Browning did a video that says how to do that. Um, if I can find the video, I'll link it in the notes. But anyway, um, yeah. So, but that's the side of scam baiting that relates to the pop-ups. So yeah, And of course, you call that number, and they try to connect to your computer, and they feed you a line of bullshit, and they're really good at it. And I mean, their goal is to get you to send them money under the guise of, I don't know, could be a refund, could be, you know, and that email, and then the email is probably just as effective, if not more effective, than the pop-ups. And that's because so the email is interesting. You get an email and it says it could be from the Geek Squad. Um, we recharged your card for such and such service, and if you didn't want this, then give us a call so we can cancel it and issue you a refund. And so, I mean, they play this off like they're Geek Squad, or they'll do something like Amazon, where, oh yeah, somebody used your information to order an iPhone, and we detected this wasn't normal purchasing, or something like that. And that's how they trick you, because there's people that'll call anyway, but they'll be like, well, I don't have an Amazon account. And unfortunately, people are just, the general population isn't that intelligent when it comes to protecting themselves and internet scams and things like that. Because if you don't, like if it's something that's like a business plan or like a service, there's something, like that, like an actual repair plan or warranty deal with, say, Geek Squad or Dell or Lenovo, whoever you're doing business with. I mean, that is a legitimate service, but if they convince you that you have in fact spent money, even though you don't have an account with them. Again, there's people that'll call in and argue, well, I don't have an account. And common sense should be, this is a waste of a phone call, because I didn't sign up for this, so this must be spam. And so learning how to determine what spam and what isn't is really going to be like a video in itself. But some of the hallmarks that come up with these types of scam emails is look for like misspellings, look for grammar errors. Because remember, these are written by people that don't speak English natively. And in India, they're English. So Indian English is its own thing. Just like there's American English, the UK English, Canadian English. I mean, every country that speaks English literally does it in their own kind of way, and it turned it into, separate languages. Um, and even though, you wouldn't think that, but yeah, the world doesn't speak U.S. English. That's just U.S. English. We're one country, and even within that, we have different dialects and accents and things like that that further divide just U.S. English. But of course, the basic grammar rules are the same, even if some of the words are spelled differently. But so look for errors, look for, and bonus points if you can tell the difference between U.S. English and UK English, because then you can look for words that they might be getting wrong regionally, like color. Like in the U.S., it's COLOR. In the UK, it's COLOUR. And so if you know that that's not how we type, then marketing people, like a legit company like Best Buy, would know how their target audience. I mean, the UK has its own site, but they would know how their target audience that they're sending that message to uses English and spell accordingly. So they're not going to make the mistake of sending you something with UK English. That's something that's very important to understand. But then you're going to look, and notice that they have misspelled words, just poor grammar, all together, just missing words, wrong, wrong verb tenses and things like that. That were, if you were to read it to somebody, you would think, oh my God, they sound unintelligent. And so that's what you would look for, at least in the scam emails. And then of course you got to ask yourself, if you see this, do I really have uh, any business done with Geek Squad? And so I bring that up because I used to, like, I think I mentioned before, I used to work for a park district, and so if this park district had their own IT department, I would know because that's what I worked in. But what happened was occasionally somebody would get an email that pretended to be from Geek Squad, and so I thought it was kind of sad that we had to remind people that your IT department isn't going to bill you. All of, so like within that district, if there was any sort of billing between departments, it was done at the management level. Um, and it wasn't, and yeah, so it had its own process that didn't look anything like getting an email, but people would have to be reminded and be taught, because again, we take for granted you know these companies that send us invoices because we're used to so many of our own that are legit, that it doesn't take a whole lot sometimes to convince somebody that this other thing that's been materialized out of thin air that isn't really something they've signed up for is a legit thing. And so that's why people fall for that, because they usually come up with a number, a price in the email that convinces you, oh, you've been charged $499, and it's a sizable amount of money. And so you've got to consider that people react very strongly to that, because that kind of number triggers emotions. Because when you realize you spent a lot of money, especially on something that you had no frickin' idea what it is or what you signed up for, and I blame some of these apps that do ads and tell people, oh yeah, you might find you've been paying for something you didn't know about. And so I think those kinds of conversations trick the wrong kind of people that are being taken advantage of, because they think, hey, I too might have something that I forgot about, and they don't even know how that happens, because not everybody gets it wrong. And so they think that they got to believe what this message says because, well, maybe I did spend this money. Maybe I did sign up for something that I forgot about. And of course, they pick Best Buy and Geek Squad because those are things that people are very likely to use. I mean, Best Buy sells a lot of computers. Geek Squad sells a lot of service. And again, if you go to Best Buy and you buy a computer, they offer you Geek Squad services. And that's what you've got to, realize, why the scammers know that this is a good way to try and rope people in. But again, there's people that will call these that have never done business with um, Geek Squad, and so they'll con people with it, right? So they'll call in, and they might even say, I've never done business with Best Buy, I've not, especially Geek Squad, and then they'll bullcrap something and get out. Oh well, you bought a computer in the last year or so, right? Yeah. Yeah. Where'd you get that from? Oh, I got it from such and such. Yeah, so and then they'll go on to try and convince you that that company too sells Geek Squad services. And I mean, it's obviously bullcrap to somebody with half a brain and common sense, but there's a lot of people that will buy into that anyway and believe it, because if you can sell it, you can convince somebody. Not everybody has the best mental capacity. Not everybody has the constitution and the just overall strength to bite back and say, "Hey, no, you're full of crap. I know you're lying to me." Because again, we have this fear of confrontation, and we're afraid to be like, "Well, you're wrong," if there's any doubt that we're wrong. And that's just the game that they play. They know they can push people around, so they do it. So we're going to talk about another way that the scammers reach out to you, and this is the more common, the more um, direct way that they'll use to reach you. It's cold calling. Yeah, people do answer phone numbers that look official. Again, this is a psychological game. I know I didn't mention it before, but the whole art of scamming is psychological warfare. They know how to take advantage of somebody. They know how to convince somebody into doing something that they're not supposed to do. They know how to do all sorts of things. All they got to do is get you on the phone and catch you at a moment of weakness. And if it's not a moment of weakness, they know that somebody could be feeble-minded. Maybe they're elderly, maybe they got dementia, maybe they got other mental illnesses that may not have anything to do with age. Different people have different, I guess, capacities to be scammed, and so yeah, they'll gauge who you are. And so some of these mistakes that they'll make in their interactions with you, especially like with the emails and stuff, they're intentionally engineered to be filtered out by somebody who has half a brain and has some common sense. Because if they know that if somebody has no common sense, they'll believe the lie that they just sold. They'll fall for the banana in the tailpipe, and so they'll believe that they got charged $500 for a support service that they realized they didn't want, and so they'll take advantage of that. And so they know that they'll have too much to fight against if somebody has a normal brain and is able to fight back and be like, I never paid for that, so why am I even going to call these guys to begin with? And so they know that as soon as their goal is to get you on the phone with them, um, that's the whole thing. Like that, every single one of these scam types has the end result directly anyway to get you on the phone. So we're going to talk about that phone part, because certain scams are 100% phone. Hey, your car's extended warranty. Oh, your appliance or extended warranty. They'll just whatever they can do to get you on the phone. They'll call and pretend to be the IRS or the Social Security. They'll pretend to be your bank. But any sort of government agency that they pretend to be, um, first off, they're not going to call you on the phone. That's not how that works. And so just consider that um, that they are banking that you don't know this, because again, it goes back to they know that somebody with half a brain is going to be able to realize, see through their bullshit and not even call, which is what they want because they don't want to waste their time, of course. And so that's why they hate, one of the many reasons they hate scam baiters so much. But yeah, that's the whole thing. You've got to realize that if you spend any amount of time talking to somebody like that, then you fell for the banana in the tailpipe. Whether or not you bought money, whether or bought gift cards or sent them money, because that's what their goal is. They're trying to get you um, to fall for something, and even if they don't get money out of you, these particular scams are also engineered to gather your personal data. They're identity thieves, and whatever they can get about you, like that's why they'll ask for things like social security, um, and just any sort of personally identifiable information that they can use. Especially, you should consider the requirements to sign up for like a Binance or a Kraken account, any sort of cryptocurrency thing, because they want to get enough. They'll literally ask you outright everything that they need to set up an account in your name, and that's a problem. And because again, they take advantage that we do exchange these details legitimately with a lot of the companies we do business with, and so it's not that unusual for a company to ask you for certain types of information. And so or especially the government's going to ask anything at all, and that's why they pretend to be these places, because depending on the level of scam that they're trying to get, they know that even if they don't get a dime out of you, they might still at least be able to get your identity. And be able to use that to do illegal things in your name and not theirs. Because remember, they're in India, and if you want to sign up for a like a finance account in the U.S., um, I don't know exactly, but I know that it's either really difficult or it's not allowed. Because the thing is, these different companies, these countries, um, you know, even though Binance is in multiple countries, it operates as different businesses in different countries, and so each branch has its own website. So like there's like Binance UK is a different site than the US Binance. In fact, Binance UK came first, and it took them a while to roll out in the US. But they'll use certain bits of your information to create these accounts. They'll get pictures of your driver's license. They'll get pictures of your social security card. They'll get your social security number one way or another. They'll get your birth date. They'll get addresses, just other things that they can use to fill out the forms needed to create your site or create your account. And so that means they even have ways to get through uh, creating like a selfie holding your driver's license. I mean, I know that sounds like a legitimate, decent way of protecting yourself and whatnot. And it is because the common person isn't going to know how to fake those. But there are scammers that hire criminals that are excellent at that, and they will know how to bypass that and defeat that method anyway. And that's one of the things that you've got to remember. So even though you might not be uh, giving them what you think is enough to pretend to be you, and if you've spent all the time on the phone with them, hook, line, and sinker, then you've already done that, in addition to probably sending them money. And this is money that you won't get back. They will do everything to catch you off balance. They will keep you on the phone longer than you'd like to make you uncomfortable. They'll verbally abuse you. They'll yell at you. They'll swear at you. They'll swear at you in Hindi. They'll swear at you in English, and they'll say awful things. And then they'll talk to their buddies in the background and not mute you so you can hear them. It'll be Hindi, but they're definitely talking mad shit about you because they're that kind of people. They're bad people, and that's where you need to. Yeah. So now we're gonna talk uh, about some other things too, because they get onto your computer. Once they've gotten onto your computer, their goal is they will do everything from locking your workstation input so you can't move your mouse or type. They will black the screen so you can't see what they're doing. And because what they're doing is after they get into your bank account and you bring up your balances page, they edit the HTML code in the site through the browser, and they know that this for the sleight of hand to work, it's best to not show that they're editing code. Sometimes some of them are not that smart, and they'll let you, and you'll see them editing the source anyway. But overall, they do try to hide that because, again, if somebody is truly stupid, they'll not say a word while that's happening because they'll think that they're doing something, because Hollywood has really screwed up with how people see hackers and stuff like that, and computer experts, and so they'll see this HTML code that you don't know HTML. It definitely looks like some weird verboten hidden mystery language that only super smart geeks would understand, and that's what they bank on. If they do see it, they just hope that this person sees what they're doing and thinks it's something above their pay grade. I don't know what they're doing. I'll just let them do it. and but it changes the code of the page. So instead of $100 in your bank, now you've got 10,000. And so they'll uh, they'll do everything to manipulate you. And again, like you realize at this point, like how stupid that you might have to be to fall for one of these traps. Um, and don't feel bad, because even the smartest people get attacked and can get compromised. A good example of that is Jim Browning. A year or so ago, maybe it's longer than that now, but in recent years anyway, he himself got social engineered. Somebody had sent him an email pretending to be YouTube, and they actually covered their bases. They did a really good job, um, and they basically convinced him to take down his YouTube channel. Like, I can't remember all the details, but you'll definitely want to, if you watch that video, look for it. It's absolutely worth watching, and it just goes to show you that even expert hacker, expert guy at scam baiting got taken advantage of, because they managed to get one on him. Like, and and he's not an idiot. That's the thing. Um, and not all of the people running these scamming operations are idiots either. I mean, I'm going to always call them idiots because they're not making a decent living. But some stages of what they do, some of the tricks that they pull, um, are actually quite interesting. They're definitely well thought. They're definitely well planned, and it takes intelligence to produce um, material like that that successfully tricks people into doing things that you want them to do. So don't ever think that you're an idiot because you got scammed. I mean, you probably aren't, just being honest, but you can still be not an idiot and still fall for something. It's just a fact of life. We want to believe the things that people tell us are true. We want to believe that the things we read online are true. We want to believe what we see on TV, and just in general, all of our information sources. We want to believe it to be true, because if it's something that's false and we realize it's false, then we feel that our time was wasted. And this is something that um, anybody with any sort of mind to attack somebody, to take advantage of somebody, is going to know that the basic human thing is we don't like our time wasted. So if we get an email, maybe we're in a bad mood and might think that we legitimately did do something with Geek Squad. Um, so again, that's why they'll do tactics to keep you off guard, to mess with you. They'll not let you off the phone. They'll do, maybe they'll have you run to the store like right now, and it's like, you're not leaving until tomorrow or until this afternoon, but it's 9:30 a.m. and they're out to get some money from some people. So they're going to hold you because they know um, basic human psychology. If you're trying to make a sale, as they call it, but also just in general, if you're trying to sell something, you never ever leave the power in the hand of the buyer. You never ever do that, and you keep that power by being the one to make contact. So that means that either you keep them on the line because you've got them right now, or you're the one that calls them back, knowing there's a chance that you'll call back later and maybe they won't pick up. Or maybe in that time especially if it's 9:30 and you say, well, I won't be able to get out there till 2. Well, between 9 and 2 is a long time to talk to your friends and family, and so social media about, hey, I got this call, and then for like 50 people to say, yeah, don't call them back, that's a scam. And so that's one of the reasons why the scammers want to keep you on the line, because basic basic sales. Again, if let's take a look at something legitimate. Let's say I am uh, furniture salesman and I'm selling you a bed, we're doing it over the phone. And if I'm really like, if this is a really high dollar, and they don't, again, this is not necessarily something they'll do for cheap sales, for small purchases, but for the larger, more luxurious items. So we'll just say this is a $10,000 bed because those exist. And we'll just say that I'm the guy selling it to you. Um, I'm not going to say, here's my number, here's my card, just call me when you're ready to buy this thing. No, it's going to be, okay, cool. When are you going to be available for us to talk about this next? And eventually it leads into setting an appointment for me to call you back. And that's because that's how the salesman keeps the power of the conversation. And, because it's just easy. We're okay with, oh, cool, we're going to get a call tomorrow at 1 o'clock to talk about the bed, so I'll just make sure I got my phone ready about that time so I don't miss the call. And that's a lot easier to deal with than trying to remember a number. Because again, if I say, hey, here's my number, call it when you're ready, that's assuming you don't lose my number. That's assuming you don't forget to call. And so that's why the scammers know this. And if they can keep you on the phone as long as they need you to, and they'll keep you on the phone, they'll have multiple people remoting into your computer at once. You might start off with AnyDesk, but then they might install another app, say UltraViewer, and they'll set up unattended. They like to use ConnectWise Control. They'll use paid-for versions of these apps when it comes time to setting up this unattended access, because what they're also banking on is, especially if you get off the phone with them. So there's things they'll do if you get off the phone with them when they're not wanting you to, or they want you to, but yeah, they'll use this access to get into your computer when you're not home, and they'll do whatever they want. They'll look up whatever they want. They'll get into your bank account because all of that will be stored in your browser. Um, so they'll do this, and they'll take advantage of you. And that's one of the reasons you don't ever let them connect to your computer in the first place. And so there's definitely ways to protect yourself if they've done that. So to protect yourself and recover from at least the technical side of everything is, I would first go through and uninstall from Control Panel every single remote access tool that you can find. Um, this isn't a complete list, but these are typically AnyDesk, TeamViewer, RustDesk. You might see something called Quick Support that's part of TeamViewer. There's Awesome. There's Supremo Control. There's just all sorts of different apps. So if you don't know, the best thing to do is shut the computer off until you get a hold of an actual expert. Say you got a friend or family member that works with computers. Say you've got, or maybe you just know a computer shop in town that you feel good about calling or taking your computer to, and they can go in and take care of this for you. Um, so they'll let it, but basically, so after you get rid of all the remote control tools, then you run a malware scan, and then there's other things that you look for, uh, like certain settings and little programs that might be lodged in places that shouldn't be there, that may not have been detected by the malware scan. But either way, like there's a cleanup process to return your computer to normal, safe use, and so um, that's just one of those things. Because yeah, so basically, if they don't get what they want out of you on the phone, they'll and if they have remote control to your computer, they may stop there and mess with you later. But if they don't have that and they're still connected to your computer on the phone, they will literally lock you out of your computer. And if your computer is not running Windows 10 or newer, they'll try to syskey it. which what this means is it will set a boot up password that Windows won't even start unless you have that password. And that's that's really frustrating because it just is, and it's just their way of pooping on you because you didn't play their game. They're mad. You ever notice these narcissists, these manipulators, just in general, not just scammers, but bad people we have in our lives? Maybe you got a controlling wife or husband, or maybe you had to eject a friend, or you're thinking about it. That's not too friendly. That's that you know what I mean. They're just not nice people, and yeah, they get mad when you don't play into their game. You know, I was with somebody for about 2.5 years that was like that, and she would play games. She would um, do everything she could to manipulate the situation and retain control. And there came a point where she realized that wasn't working, and it made her angry. And so these people absolutely lash out. These people do things. That's when they start yelling at you and they start swearing at you, and it comes from the same place, whether it's a scammer or a bitch of a spouse. I mean, it's the same thing. It's all they're mentally ill. That's what it is. And so the difference with the scammer is because it's the scammer's job. The ones that are really good at it are trained to just do this and do it very effectively. Because again, if I'm yelling at you and I'm beating you down, there is a possibility that I will get you to do what I want you to do, because you're going to hate what I'm doing so much that you will just make me happy, so I leave you alone. And so that's the other thing. You hang up or you leave them on a bad note or whatever. Sometimes they'll just keep calling you until they realize you're not going to answer. Because they also know that if you call them enough times, some people will, again, that's psychological torture, and they will give in and they will answer the phone and be like, "What? What do you want? Why do you keep calling? I told you I wasn't interested, or I'm not, or I know you're a fucking scammer." They'll keep, they'll, they'll get you until you give in, and sometimes they can really convince you to still do everything, even though you might know you're doing something, well, no, half-assed, I guess. Because if you know and you completely know, then you're not gonna play along. But yeah, they're real savages, to say the least. And and maybe that's not even the word. They're assholes. They're conniving assholes. They're manipulators. They're just smooth talkers. Whatever you want to use, they're good at it, and they know it. They know that their tricks work. They make so the like scammers as a whole make billions upon billions every year. It's a thriving industry, and it's organized crime. It's not legal to do this in India, and so the reason why these places continue to exist, why they continue to um, operate, because the police forces over there, you can't bank on the cops to do their job because they're just as corrupt as the crooks. And I mean, there are places where the cops are good, but even where they're good, it takes a lot of convincing to get them to even take action on enough reports. You have to give them plenty of evidence. You have to convince them that you're 100% telling them the truth for them to even investigate. And so yeah, so some scam baiters have managed to get people brought to justice. People went to prison, they lost businesses. But what happens more often than not is, instead of getting the cops involved, because again they're corrupt, so these guys that run these call centers, they'll pay off the cops because they're making a hell of a lot of money. They can pay these certain cops off to keep their name out of the news and keep their asses out of jail. And so that's why these cops are so corrupt. They'll get a report and they'll be like, after you get out the phone, yeah, we know about that, but fuck this guy, we're not doing it. And you know, so scam baiters don't always successfully get them to shut down because of, jail time, but they do often get call centers shut down because they will overwhelm their phone lines. They will spy on their CCTV. They will get into the computer systems and have rats running where they can use the computers like puppets. And that's going to be the purpose to pull the Wi Fi and do everything to identify the people, where they are, and who they are. Um, Not to mention scam victim data. And so once that happens, reasonably so, a person might get spooked. Because here's the other thing, these people pretend to work with technology, but they're probably no more savvy than you are. They're just evil and they're willing to read a script and learn how to do basically nothing. Because the other thing that they'll do to convince you this sleight of hand is they'll open up a command prompt. And to the uninitiated, the command prompt does look something, something fancy, something high level, and it really isn't. But they'll run commands that aren't doing anything that they say they are, because within a command prompt window, unless you know that something's been installed or whatever, then there isn't actually any sort of scanning tools. And so they'll run batch scripts, they'll type things, they'll do whatever it takes to convince you that you're connecting to something special. And that's before they even try to put malware to lock you out of your computer. So, yeah, I mean, the best way to protect against that, or at least recover against it, is clean everything back up. And if you have any doubts and you don't have the money, I hope you take backups, because you can reset your PC, reinstall Windows, and that'll return it to a state of normalness and safe. So, yeah, that's going to conclude my talk on scammers and the bull crap they do. Until next time.